Trinamool hints at action against Mahua. Even Mamata Didi is offering no support. Mahua declares, "Will defend till I die." Is Mahua's fate sealed? Now, there's no question, as far as free speech is concerned, we have a very firm position. And here on India Today, here on 5 Live especially, we have said that there is nothing offensive about what Leena Manimekalai had done. But in the pictures that she has posted since the Kaali film poster that she had put out a couple of days ago, it is clear that the intent now is to provoke, to disrespect, to instigate, and to stoke. And what is the division between that and free speech is up for debate. You can decide, but here are the headlines before we put the spotlight on that story. After smoking Kaali poster, filmmaker Leena Manimekalai tweets, "Smoking Shiva and Durga folk theatre artist images, clearly in an effort to stoke and provoke now." It's not about free speech. She calls India a hate machine. Kolkata's revered Dakshineshwar Kaali temple slams Leena Manimekalai. First, he was tutored by the police in custody to pose as drunk and escape the law. Now Ajmer's hate-monger Khadim seen flashing a thumbs up sign. Okay, we're going straight to UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who is about to resign in London. Let's listen in.
It's clearly now the will of the Parliamentary Conservative Party that there should be a new leader of that party and therefore a new Prime Minister. And I've agreed with Sir Graham Brady, the chairman of our backbench MPs, that the process of choosing that new leader should begin now. And the timetable will be announced next week. And I've today appointed a cabinet to serve, as I will, until a new leader is in place. So I want to say to the millions of people who voted for us in 2019, many of them voting Conservative for the first time, thank you for that incredible mandate, the biggest Conservative majority since 1987, the biggest share of the vote since 1979. And the reason I have fought so hard in the last few days to continue to deliver that mandate in person was not just because I wanted to do so, but because I felt it was my job, my duty, my obligation to you to continue to do what we promised in 2019. And of course, I'm immensely proud of the achievements of this government, from getting Brexit done to settling our relations with the continent for over half a century, reclaiming the power for this country to make its own laws in Parliament, getting us all through the pandemic, delivering the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe, the fastest exit from lockdown, and in the last few months, leading the West in standing up to Putin's aggression in Ukraine. And let me say now to the people of Ukraine that I know that we in the UK will continue to back your fight for freedom for as long as it takes. And at the same time, in this country, we've been pushing forward a vast program of investment in infrastructure and skills and technology, the biggest in a century, because if I have one insight into human beings, it is that genius and talent and enthusiasm and imagination are evenly distributed throughout the population, but opportunity is not. And that's why we must keep levelling up, keep unleashing the potential of every part of the United Kingdom. And if we can do that in this country, we will be the most prosperous in Europe. And in the last few days, I've tried to persuade my colleagues that it would be eccentric to change governments when we're delivering so much, and when we have such a vast mandate, and when we're actually only a handful of points behind in the polls, even in mid-term after quite a few months of pretty relentless sledging, and when the economic scene is so difficult domestically and internationally. And I regret not to have been successful in those arguments, and of course it's painful not to be able to see through so many ideas and projects myself. But as we've seen at Westminster, the herd instinct is powerful. When the herd moves, it moves. And my friends, in politics, no one is remotely indispensable. And our brilliant and Darwinian system will produce another leader equally committed to taking this country forward through tough times, not just helping families to get through it, but changing and improving the way we do things, cutting burdens on businesses and families, and yes, cutting taxes, because that is the way to generate the growth and the income we need to pay for great public services. And to that new leader, I say, whoever he or she may be, I say I will give you as much support as I can. And to you, the British public, I know that there will be many people who are relieved, and perhaps quite a few who will also be disappointed. And I want you to know how sad I am to be giving up the best job in the world. But them's the breaks. I want to thank Carrie and our children and all the members of my family who have had to put up with so much for so long. I want to thank the peerless British Civil Service for all the help and support that you have given our police, our emergency services, and of course our fantastic NHS, who at critical moment helped to extend my own period in office, as well as our armed services and our agencies that are so admired around the world, and our indefatigable Conservative Party members and supporters, whose selfless campaigning makes our democracy possible. I want to thank the wonderful staff here at Chequers, here at Number 10, and of course at Chequers, and our fantastic prop force detectives, the one group, by the way, who never leak. Above all, I want to thank you, the British public, for the immense privilege that you have given me. And I want you to know that from now on until the new Prime Minister is in place, your interests will be served and the government of the country will be carried on. Being Prime Minister is an education in itself. I've travelled to every part of the United Kingdom, and in addition to the beauty of our natural world, I found so many people possessed of such boundless British originality and so willing to tackle old problems in new ways that I know that even if things can sometimes seem dark now, our future together is golden. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Johnson has resigned as the UK Prime Minister. He will be the caretaker leader of government until a new Prime Minister is sworn into office at 10 Downing Street. The people who could succeed Boris Johnson after his turbulent 2 years as Prime Minister, one of the most high-profile Prime Ministers in recent memory at 10 Downing Street, has just thrown in the towel. He's hung up his boots and has stepped down under the cloud of a scandal, the scandal involving his deputy chief whip in government, caught in a misconduct sex scandal where he is alleged to have groped some men at a gentleman's club. It became an escalating scandal with up to 40 of Boris Johnson's colleagues in government resigning. It became a huge scandal after the Sun tabloid newspaper revealed that scandal, and in just days after that, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of that country, has just stepped down. He couldn't fight the tidal wave of resignations that went out against him. He's been a controversial Prime Minister of the United Kingdom in a 2-year stint right in the wake of Brexit, and now he steps down as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Of course, procedurally speaking, he will continue to be the caretaker leader of government until a new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is sworn in. But Boris Johnson has been done in by a wave of mass resignations. He says he's sad to be giving up what he calls the best job in the world, and promises that a new leader will receive his full support after he or she is chosen and then sworn in very, very shortly. Boris Johnson, famous for his unruly hair, his flippant attitude, his irreverent style, his intemperate remarks about world affairs sometimes, has stepped down as one of the most visible and controversial British Prime Ministers. Who comes next is going to be the big question. Boris Johnson, remember, was very recently in India, where the Prime Minister of India had hosted him in Gujarat as well. Boris Johnson ceases to be the full-time Prime Minister of the United Kingdom starting a few minutes ago. Let's listen in once again to Boris Johnson announcing that he is stepping down.
Everybody, good afternoon. Thank you. It is clearly now the will of the Parliamentary Conservative Party that there should be a new leader of that party and therefore a new Prime Minister. And I've agreed with Sir Graham Brady, the chairman of our backbench MPs, that the process of choosing that new leader should begin now. And the timetable will be announced next week. And I've today appointed a cabinet to serve, as I will, until a new leader is in place. So I want to say to the millions of people who voted for us in 2019, many of them voting Conservative for the first time, thank you for that incredible mandate, the biggest Conservative majority since 1987, the biggest share of the vote since 1979. And the reason I have fought so hard in the last few days to continue to deliver that mandate in person was not just because I wanted to do so, but because I felt it was my job, my duty, my obligation to you to continue to do what we promised in 2019. And of course, I'm immensely proud of the achievements of this government, from getting Brexit done to settling our relations with the continent for over half a century, reclaiming the power for this country to make its own laws in Parliament, getting us all through the pandemic, delivering the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe, the fastest exit from lockdown, and in the last few months, leading the West in standing up to Putin's aggression in Ukraine. And let me say
so very, very soon, a new Prime Minister of the United Kingdom will be chosen. Here are the possibles. Here are the people who all could stand a chance of becoming the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Number one, there's Liz Truss. She serves as the Foreign Secretary of the UK. She served as UK's International Trade Secretary, played a very important part in Brexit, was a very visible face during that time, and is a favourite of the Conservative ruling party. Rishi Sunak, another familiar face, Indian origin, former Finance Minister of the UK, praised for his UK economy rescue package, but criticised for breaking lockdown rules. That became a tabloid sensation a few months ago. Then there's Jeremy Hunt, UK's former Foreign Secretary, finished second to Johnson in the 2019 elections. He sniffs a chance at 10 Downing Street. Nadeem Zahawi is the serving Finance Minister he's of Iraqi descent, came to the UK as a refugee. He stands a chance as well. Ben Wallace is the current Defence Minister of the United Kingdom, praised for handling the Ukraine crisis on Britain's behalf. Then there's also Sajid Javid. He is of Pakistani origin. He's a former UK Health Secretary, a former banker, son of immigrant parents, like I said, from Pakistan. So those are the likelies at this point of time, the people who are conjectured to be possibly the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Gaurav Sawant with us live. Gaurav, this was like a tsunami that swept Boris Johnson away. It kept building ever since that Sun tabloid news break about that infamous scandal at a gentleman's club. And after that, it was one after the other. Boris Johnson tried to fight it, but he simply didn't stand a chance. He was swept away by these mass resignations. And I think over the last 48 hours, it became pretty clear that the end was in sight. So today wasn't much of a surprise.
Shiv, just when he thought he was on a high, just when, images of him being on the streets of Kiev early in the morning, showing solidarity with President Zelensky, and he thought he would be on a high, brick by brick, his regime was brought down in the United Kingdom. And that trickle became a tsunami with over 50 or close to 50 resignations, especially after the groping scandal at the Gentlemen's Club. So, those who he thought were close to him started resigning because they thought that this fire would also singe them. You're talking about Rishi Sunak, former finance secretary. Could he be the next prime minister? He's of Indian origin. There are some who are also talking about Preeti Patel, the no-nonsense home secretary. Could she be a dark horse or a front runner? We still do not know which way this goes, but there are several who saw the writing on the wall, and perhaps so did he. If he thought that he's going to arrest that tide, that clearly wasn't possible, with the resignations coming one after the other and the trickle becoming a tsunami, Shiv.
Okay, Gaurav, stay with me. I want to get a perspective in from London as well. Alex Seal is a well-known political analyst. Alex, thanks for your time on this breaking story. It had become pretty obvious that the end was just inevitable. There was an air of inevitability about Boris Johnson over the last 36 to 48 hours. What are you making of this, the speech that he just gave? And also, Alex, who do you think is going to be in 10 Downing Street next?
Well, 24 hours ago, it was unclear that Boris Johnson would have resigned. People compared him to Donald Trump. People said there was going to be a cabinet coup, and there was a cabinet coup because lots of his ministers told him to leave, and Boris Johnson sacked one of his ministers, Michael Gove. And so Boris Johnson, he didn't want to leave power, and because he became prime minister in 2019, and his dream was to become prime minister. So of course, he didn't want to leave 10 Downing Street. And the scandals happened in January, as your previous guest said, and there was first of all Partygate. And there was this wallpaper gate in Downing Street, Owen Patterson, and now this latest scandal of Chris Spencer. So Boris Johnson was forced to resign. A month ago, he was, I would say, saved by the 211 Tory MPs who voted against him. But 148 MPs voted, 211 MPs who voted for him, but 148 MPs voted against him. So in his speech, he said he thanked his electors. He was pretty sad that he couldn't finish his mandate because in several interviews he wanted to stay on.
Alex, is there a front runner though? Is there a front runner for who could be the next Prime Minister of UK?
That's the problem. There isn't really a front-runner. There are several names. There are several candidates. For example, Sajid Javid, who made quite a good speech in Parliament yesterday. He accused the Prime Minister of lying to him during Partygate when he was Health Secretary. Rishi Sunak could be one of the front-runners. I don't see Preeti Patel being one of the front-runners. Liz Truss, who's the Foreign Secretary, could be one of the front-runners too. Someone called Tom Tugendhat, who is a backbencher. Maybe there could be several backbenchers who could be front-runners. I could maybe see a former Conservative called Rory Stewart who could come back in the race. And so there are lots of front-runners, and this fight will be quite dirty, I think. And will Boris Johnson want to leave Downing Street? That's the big question.
Interesting. It's going to, there's still some questions that remain unanswered. Most of all, of course, is who's going to be the next Prime Minister of the UK and the manner in which Boris Johnson is going to leave 10 Downing Street and when he's going to do that. So all of those questions will hopefully become answered in the next couple of days, next 72 hours at the maximum. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Gaurav, for that, because as Boris Johnson steps down as the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, here's a report. I mean, it's scandal after scandal. Like I said, it's been one of the most turbulent, one of the most scandal-peppered tenures of a UK Prime Minister. Most of the time, if you ask a person who the British Prime Minister is, it takes people a moment to remember who the Prime Minister is. David Cameron, Theresa May, you know, all of the others. It's always a little vague. This guy had instant recall because he had personality. You know exactly who he was. He had he was like a Chota Trump in many ways in people's eyes. So instantly you know who the Prime Minister of the UK was. Here is what his tenure looked like. That led to
Mr. Speaker, I want to apologise.
When did things start to unravel for Boris Johnson?
He was hosting boozy parties in Downing Street.
He's lied to the British public, he's lied to Parliament.
Boris Johnson, the party is over.
And he must resign.
From sleaze scandal to lockdown parties, recent events have badly tarnished the leadership credentials of Britain's Prime Minister. This timeline tracks some of the missteps and controversies that got him to this point. In November, The Mirror publishes the first of many media reports about Christmas parties taking place in government offices, including Johnson's own Downing Street office, in December 2020.
Was a Christmas party thrown in Downing Street for dozens of people on December the 18th?
At that time, such gatherings were banned because of a coronavirus lockdown. In fact, this was the PM's message to the public.
Given the early evidence we have on this new variant of the virus, the potential risk it poses, it is with a very heavy heart, I must tell you, we cannot continue with Christmas as planned.
In December, Johnson told journalists that no lockdown restrictions were broken. Hours later, a leaked video emerged showing his staff laughing and joking over how to explain a gathering in Downing Street. The next day, Johnson apologised and his then press secretary resigned.
The British people have made immense sacrifices in the ongoing battle against COVID-19. I now fear that my comments in the leaked video of the 20th of December last year have become a distraction in that fight.
I was also furious to see that clip. And Mr. Speaker, I apologise unreservedly for the offence that it has caused up and down the country, and I apologise for the impression that it gives.
On December the 9th, Johnson's party, the Conservatives, are fined $23,500 by the electoral watchdog for failing to accurately report a donation that helped fund the refurbishment of the Prime Minister's official residence. Several days later, on December the 14th, more than 100 of Johnson's Conservative lawmakers voted against his new coronavirus restrictions, dealing a blow to his authority and raising more questions about his leadership. On December the 19th, more controversy. This time, a photo of Johnson and more than a dozen other people drinking wine in the garden of his Downing Street residence, taken during the first COVID-19 lockdown in May 2020. At that time, this was the government's message to the public on gatherings.
You must obey the rules on social distancing, and to enforce those rules, we will increase the fines for the small minority who break them.
In January, broadcaster ITV publishes a leaked email from Johnson's private secretary inviting more than 100 people to a, quote, bring your own booze party in the garden of Downing Street in May 2020. ITV says Johnson and his partner Kaali were among the 40 or so people who attended.
Mr. Speaker, I want to apologise. When I went into that garden just after 6 on the 20th of May 2020, to thank groups of staff before going back into my office 25 minutes later to continue working, I believed implicitly that this was a work event.
He's finally been forced to admit what everyone knew, that when the whole country was locked down, he was hosting boozy parties in Downing Street. Yes. Is he now going to do the decent thing and resign?
I want to go across to Geeta Mohan, who's joining us live on the story. Geeta, is there an India angle here? How is the Indian government looking at this? About 24 hours ago, perhaps there was a sense of uncertainty about whether Boris Johnson would be able to weather this entire tsunami. What are the sounds you're hearing?
Well, Shiv, a lot of questions coming to me. We've been doing these lives all through the day on our YouTube channels and various other platforms of the network. And most of them are asking whether if this decision and this move or the developments in the UK will impact India-UK ties. Now, we do know that that relations between India and the UK have grown significantly under the leadership of Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Boris Johnson really was...
Audio a little bit, it's a little broken, so we'll try and re-establish that link with Geeta in just a short while. But I'm going to tune out of this coverage on Boris Johnson. Once we have an update for you, we'll get you a news break on that, especially on how he's going to leave 10 Downing Street and who the next Prime Minister will be. But, this is how TV news works, folks. We start out wanting to do one story, but you've got all this breaking news coming in from London. But since this is the story we started out wanting to do today, here's a full report on Leena Manimekalai, the filmmaker who started this entire Kaali issue that's become so political and so hot. We spoke about it all through this week today. And amidst this huge outrage over the smoking Kaali poster, filmmaker Leena is not indulging in free speech anymore. In most people's eyes, she's provoking deliberately now. She's tweeted another picture showing a man and a woman, theatre artists from some village, dressed as Shiva and Parvati. Lovely picture, smoking. But it's the intention behind the posting of this picture at this time that is being criticized as a provocation and disrespect. Take a look. First, a controversial film poster on goddess Kaali, showing the deity revered by Hindus smoking a cigarette. Facing a massive backlash, protests and multiple FIRs, filmmaker Leena Manimekalai has remained defiant, combative and aggressive. On Thursday, she came out with yet another controversial post showing a man and woman, folk dancers dressed as Shiva and Parvati, smoking. Her detractors saw red. Kolkata's Dakshineshwar Kaali temple slammed her cigarette-smoking goddess poster as hurtful to Hindu sentiments. BJP and Hindu groups held multiple protests. Several BJP netas and activists have sought the suspension of Leena Manimekalai's Twitter account for repeatedly insulting Hindu gods and goddesses, they claim.
हम मध्य प्रदेश सरकार की ओर से केंद्र को पत्र लिखने जा रहे हैं कि एक LOC जारी करें, वो लुकआउट सर्कुलर होता है ये लीना मणिमेकलाई जी के खिलाफ, क्योंकि अब वो जो कर रही हैं वो जानबूझ के कर रही हैं, ऐसा प्रतीत होता है.
This is not about creative expression. This is clearly about targeting one community, one faith, and saying that this is, in our terms, secularism means abusing Hindus. And this is our right and we shall do it.
In the name of creativity and the freedom of speech, what the people has been doing, they are making a derogatory statements and derogatory pictures, posted derogatory pictures against the other religious community. It is not only about Hindu community. I am talking about every community. It should be stopped.
But amidst the wrath and protests, Leena remains unfazed, firing a series of salvos on her social media accounts. Sitting in Canada, she calls India the largest hate machine out to censor her, terming the outrage against her an overdrive by trolls on the BJP payrolls, unaware of how folk artists relax, and claiming bigotry by the Sangh Parivar can never ensure Hindutva to become India. Has the filmmaker, in her zeal to defend herself, started defaming India and using free speech simply to provoke? Bureau Report, India Today. Now, you can choose to agree with or disagree with politicians and activists and filmmakers and even journalists. But one person you cannot ignore, perhaps, is a person like Amish Tripathi. He is an authority on gods and goddesses and mythology. He has a nuanced take on the Kaali controversy. You don't want to miss this huge trending interview with Rahul Kaval that's coming up next.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com or call 9999892171. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
You are watching India Today.
Everyone's busy finding what's trending. You're busy finding out why. India Today, for those who research before reacting. Download the India Today app now.
Magnificent Mercury is cratered with marks and bruises. The planet was never seen this closely before. A European-Japanese spacecraft.
In the midst of this raging controversy on Ma Kaali, joining me now live from London, the one man who explains Hindu gods and goddesses, our religion, to a young generation of readers and viewers better than virtually anybody else. Best-selling author, director of the Nehru Centre in London, Amish Tripathi. Amish, whenever there's anything happening in the sphere of religion, when there's a controversy to do with our gods and goddesses, you're the one person I think of to try and explain what's going on and why. And it's fantastic to have you with us live from London on the news track. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Welcome, Amish.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Rahul. Pleasure being here.
Amish, you would have seen that at the India Today conclave, which we did in Kolkata this week, we had Trinamool Congress MP Mahua Mitro make a comment on Ma Kaali, which has sparked off a massive political storm in India, which I'm sure you're tracking sitting in London. I think this is a good opportunity to reflect on, Ma Kaali as a goddess in the Indian pantheon of gods, and more importantly, this whole fight that we're seeing about people getting offended by comments about our gods, because as I read your books and others, there's so much about gods being liberal, Hinduism being liberal. Now, are we heading into a space where there's less liberalism than there has been so far? So let me start by asking you about the controversy itself. And Mahua Mitro describes Ma Kaali as an alcohol-accepting, meat-consuming goddess, and that's the chadhawa that happens at different temples. How do you look at this entire fireworks that's taking place in the overall picture?
Rahul, look, there are discussions that one can have on Hinduism and spirituality. I believe, and I'm sitting in London, but so I'm not closing it as I'm not tracking it as closely as you would be. But from what I know, the controversy began with some poster in Canada, if I'm not mistaken, where Ma Kaali was shown smoking. To be honest, I don't know what meat eating has to do with smoking. I thought they were two completely different issues. But what I suspect is happening in the modern day, I think it's John Nash's, if you know the Nobel laureate, the brilliant mathematician John Nash's theories in action, really. John Nash had theorized that individuals or groups interact with each other and what are states of disequilibrium and what is a state of equilibrium, what in game theory is called Nash equilibrium. And the state of disequilibrium in most democracies in the West and in India is that certain religions are treated with extreme disrespect, whereas certain religions are treated with extreme respect, sometimes even fear. In the West, for example, Christianity is attacked very aggressively and sometimes nauseatingly, by the similar groups, radical woke Marxists, radical Islamists, but not so much, other religions like wokeism or Islam. In India, the religion that is attacked aggressively is Hinduism by the same groups. This is a state of disequilibrium, as John Nash had theorized. So what is a state of equilibrium? Where one state of equilibrium can be where all religions are treated with equal disrespect by the ones who primarily create disrespect in democracies, radical woke Marxists and radical Islamists, or that all religions are treated with equal respect, which is how most Indian Muslims actually behave. Most Indian Muslims will, of course, not be happy if Allah or Prophet Muhammad are disrespected, but in turn, they respect, Hindu gods, Christian beliefs. It's for them Ganga, Jamuna, Tarzi.
No, but Amish, the way that I see it, and many others
this is the core problem, which is causing the issues, I think.
This equilibrium that you talk about, Amish, is also one of the hallmarks of our culture. One of the best things about Hinduism is that it's perceived as being a more liberal religion. And when, for example, Salman Taseer was killed because of some apparent blasphemy in Pakistan, most people looked at what happened and said, hey, this can never happen in India because Hinduism isn't like that. With the FIRs, the arrests, people getting offended, many would wonder whether this is seeing our Sanatan culture, our Hindu culture, which so far had been very liberal, become less liberal in the search of the equilibrium that you talk about, Amish.
Rahul, John Nash did not talk about morality. He just talked about how humans behave, right? This is not about how people should behave. It is how they naturally behave. One-way disrespect is not sustainable beyond a point of time. Having said that, what is the thing that I would like? What I would like is actually our traditional Sanatan Dharmic traditions of Vada, of treating religions with respect, but yet gently questioning, which was our tradition. There is no need to insult religions or insult gods or insult prophets just because you want to question. That was our Vada tradition. Satyam Bruhat, Priyam Bruhat. Speak the truth, but speak it with love. So, for example, one can question casteism in Hinduism, in modern Hinduism, by using the wonderful words of Bhagavad Gita rather than being offensive. One can question misogyny in modern Islam by using the inspiring example of Lady Khadija rather than being insulting. One can question child abuse in modern Christianity by using the true message of Jesus Christ respectfully rather than being insulting. And that is the Indian way. That is what I would love to see. The only point I'm trying to make, Rahul, is using John Nash's theories. This wonderful world cannot exist as long as two primary groups, woke Marxists, radical woke Marxists and radical Islamists, continue their one-way disrespect, which they are doing not just in India, frankly, but in fact in all democracies, and are creating extremely troubled times. This is all of us who love debate, but in a modern, respectful way.
But it's also a reality, Amish, that our gods and goddesses from time immemorial have been interpreted in different ways, in different books, in poems. Let me quote to you what this Canadian filmmaker told the BBC. She says in her film, she champions humanity, embraces diversity. She's talking about Ma Kaali. As a poet and filmmaker, I embody Kaali in my own independent vision. What is wrong with that? Everyone, you in your books, others who've written on our gods and goddesses have their own interpretation of our gods, and there is no one interpretation which is the only interpretation and there be no other interpretation. This filmmaker says, this is my interpretation of Ma Kaali. She's waving an LGBTQ flag, she's smoking a cigarette. What is wrong with it is the question she asks.
Two things, Rahul. One is, I don't know that filmmaker nor have I heard a statement, so I can't really comment on that. But there are interpretations of all religions, so even Islam has Sunni and Shias. where the interpretations of the scriptures, from what I've been told, I can't say I've read Islamic scriptures, but from what I've been told, they're different. Christianity has Catholicism, Protestantism, Greek Orthodox, where interpretations are different. So this exists, to be honest, in all religions. And every religion, has beautiful things that can be learned from. Every religion has, has things that could be gently and politely questioned and improved. All of us have that. The problem isn't that. The problem is the modern world that we live in, and the situation created by two groups who, and I must clarify that the primary victims of the radical woke Marxists and the radical Islamists are their own people. 80% of the victims of Islamic terrorist attacks are actually Muslims. Most people don't know this. They attack Muslims who they think are not sufficiently pure. You read the Black Book of Communism, the vast majority of the victims of Marxism are actually their own people. So when we push back against these two extremist groups, the primary people we'll be helping are actually Muslims and leftists. They are the ones who are creating much of this unsustainable one-way equilibrium. I'll repeat once again, Ganga Jamuna Tehzeeb can only be two-way. It cannot be one-way. And that is, again, I'm saying it's not about what should be, it is the reality of what ends up.
But if somebody has a closed door and a closed mind, must we also close our doors and minds? Not keep our hearts open, as has been the case with India so far?
Rahul, there are two ways of liberalism. One is the California way. One is the New York way. The New York way, they are liberals, but they're tough. The Indian way has usually been closer to the New York way. They are liberals, but we are tough. And if there's an unfairness that is perceived, then people will push back. Again, I'm not commenting on individual cases. That would be unfair, because the analysis of that must be done through due process, and if a case has been filed, it must be done by the courts. I'm talking about what's happening generally at a broader level.
But let me quote to you what Mahua Mitro says, Amish. She, at the India Today conclave, we did said, if you go to Bhutan or Sikkim, for example, where they do puja, they give whiskey to their god. If you go to Uttar Pradesh and say you'll give whiskey to your god as prasad, it will be seen as blasphemous. And I have here with me a full range of temples from Delhi to Madhya Pradesh to Gujarat to Odisha, in different parts of the country, where meat, for example, is given as a prasad to our gods, and in several places alcohol is given as prasada as well. That is a reality, but somehow when you say that as a reality, it's almost seen as being offensive. But it's not like a hidden reality, it's the prasad that's given in full public view.
Rahul, one is of course quotation, the second is one of the legal things, the mens rea, the intention with which it was said. There's a Muslim friend of mine in London who showed me a video of Islamic preacher Zakir Naik saying almost exactly the same thing that Ms. Sharma said. And I was confused. So then I asked that, then why are you offended? He said that no, actually it wasn't what was said, it was the way it was said, the intention with which it was said. So I said, okay, that's for a court to decide, that what was the intention with which something was said. I guess maybe it's a similar situation. And this, Rahul, this tends to arise in an atmosphere where there is a feeling of unfairness. I'm saying once again, this is the way human beings will end up behaving if they feel, that they are being subjected to unfairness. This is what John Nash's theory clearly predicts, and you can see it in action.
But the counter to that from the likes of Mahua Mitro, Amish, is her statement. I'll quote to you what she says. I do not want to live in an India where BJP's monolithic, patriarchal, Brahminical view of Hinduism will prevail and the rest of us will have to tiptoe around religion. I will defend this till I die. File your FIRs. I'll see you in every court in the land. So essentially the idea that there is one North Indian or a BJP idea, a Brahminical idea of our gods and goddesses, And because that party is in power, is that one view of our gods now sought to be imposed on everyone else who may not see their gods like that? For them, giving a non-veg prasad to our gods may just be the way it's been for generations, as is the case with several of our Adivasi communities and many others.
Rahul, one will get into Hinduism and this thing separately. That's a separate conversation. And I certainly wouldn't like to comment on the politics of it. But I have to admit, I'm a little confused by the statement, because I never support any political party openly or anything. But I'm a little confused by that statement because the Prime Minister is not a Brahmin, the Home Minister is not a Brahmin, the President of India is not a Brahmin, the President candidate is not a Brahmin. But Miss Moitra is a Brahmin, actually. Judging by the surname, from what I know of Bengal. So I'm a little confused because she's kind of speaking against herself there.
That's interesting. That's a good counter from Amish.
No, I'm not trying to counter. I'm not trying to counter.
No, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
But if I may, Rahul, if I may just clarify one thing, that this entire concept of community guilt is something that, again, all of us who are liberal and Indian and follow our traditional ways must counter, because both the left and the right do this to groups that they hate. The left will say that all Brahmins, or indeed all upper castes, must collectively be held responsible for the crimes of a few among them. And the right wing says that all Muslims must be collectively held responsible for the crimes of a few Muslims. They are both the same. And this collective guilt of entire groups is a Western, Middle Eastern concept, and we must argue against this. This is a highly dangerous concept. Collective guilt towards entire groups, both the left and the right do it, and they use it against groups that they don't like. This is I do not support this kind of approach. We must look at individuals individually for their.
I'm not being able to draw you out and get you to reveal what you think about the fact that it is the reality that in several temples, for example, the Bhairav temple in Delhi, it permits devotees to offer alcohol to the presiding deity Bhairav, manifestation of Lord Shiva. At the Kaal Bhairav temple in Ujjain, apart from flowers and coconuts, a bottle of liquor is often offered to the deities by devotees. At the Panchya Dada temple in Surendranagar in Gujarat, devotees come from far to give liquor and some of the bitings to the devotees. This is the same as in the Manaigarh area of Ahmedabad, the Uttareshwari temple in Odisha, Kashi ke Kotwal as well, where chocolate, alcohol, meat are quite dear to the gods who preside over these temples.
Rahul, I said again, there are, every religion, there are things that can be discussed, and there's a platform for that. And I discussed that. In fact, you can check my old videos. I've discussed that openly. The issue out here is actually not that. The issue out here is a sense of unfairness which is causing people to react in certain ways. And the point is, unless we address that, for example, I'm a very liberal, peaceful person, but if someone makes Gaumutra jibes, for example, even I get upset that this is, okay, I'm liberal and peaceful, so I will not get angry, right? This is at the heart of the issue that you're seeing in India today, and genuinely for our dharmic traditions and for our ancestors, I wish we can push back against the one-way disrespect that is being meted out by two groups, which is causing much of this chaos. We assume that only Hindus are liberal in India. I am saying it's not true. Hindus are, of course, liberal, as every other religious group in India. It's only in India that a Muslim group like the Manganiyars, who can be Namazi Muslims, will also sing devotional ballads to Lord Ram. It's only in India that Christians will celebrate Diwali as well. The atmosphere does exist. The atmosphere is being spoiled by two groups primarily, radical woke Marxists and radical Islamists.
Where does this end? This equilibrium that you speak about and the pushback from Hindu society, where does this end? Does it potentially...
John Nash's, look, I mean, it's better to quote a Nobel laureate than you or
you
I.
tell me what you think. You're a smart thinker yourself. No, hear my question then respond. My fear is, does this end in an India which is less tolerant, less liberal, less open, where people get offended so quickly that if you say something which in years, like let me give you that example of that Rishikesh Mukherjee film from 1983. When it came in the film, you know, the honeymoon, nobody even commented, or just chuckled at it, laughed it off. Now, you've got Zubair who's been arrested. There's an ED inquiry which is separately ongoing against him. The police has locked him up. He's not been given bail yet. So does that end up in a more intolerant world? What was just a joke which would be laughed at 83 in 1983 now becomes a criminal offense?
Rahul, in traditional Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and in fact, all the dharmic religions, so traditional Sikhism as well, blasphemy was seen as juvenile stupidity, frankly. Not as something that, but the Nash equilibrium and the game theory shows very clearly in which two ways this can move. Either all religions are treated with equal respect, or all religions are treated with equal disrespect. It will move in one of these two directions. Where it will move, I don't know. I'm not a crystal ball gazer. But what I would like is ideally going back to our traditional ways where we do not disrespect religions or gods or prophets. I gently question all religion, but you'll never find a video of me speaking rudely or offensively of any god of any religion, of any prophet or messiah, male or female.
Sure, no, I hear you. That's an important. The intonation, the intent, the delivery is important.
That does not mean that we do not question. We question gently, because that's how reform happens, right? That's how improvement happens. I wish we can go back to that, to that way of life. But I suspect that is not possible in any democracy, Western democracies or Indian democracies, as long as these two groups, radical woke Marxists and radical Islamists, keep creating their one-way disrespect issue, frankly.
Let's come now to what happened in Udaipur, potentially also in Amravati, where offended by comments made by Nupur Sharma and those who supported her line of thinking, we saw beheadings of a kind associated with the ISIS, not common to India. It's happened, but very rarely and over decades, not in frequent succession. Now, that's very dangerous, where you don't have people who've gone to Pakistan across the LOC, been radicalized by the Lashkar. They've seen videos, they've been once. One of them went once in 2014, according to the investigation so far, to Pakistan, but he's largely been radicalized sitting inside our own community. What does that say to you, Amish, in terms of where we are going as a community, as a country, and this fear of us versus them leading to such brutal outcomes?
Rahul, one is seeing acts of such violence not just in India but in many parts of the world, in the West as well, and this is deeply worrying. And this is something that those who speak for religion in all religious groups must speak about, must bring about the interpretations that do not allow things like this, must ensure that unlike what happened with Ilmuddin in Pakistan, that which happened pre-independence in the British Raj era, where Ilmuddin actually became a hero because Muhammad Ali Jinnah and the poet Iqbal turned him into a hero. He did a similar thing actually. This must be combated by all religious groups, and this is unfortunate and extremely unacceptable.
Okay, but that leads to then a blowback, because if, for example, Zubair is arrested, then people would ask, why is Nupur Sharma not arrested? So, you made that point that what she said has been said previously. Probably she didn't say it right, and therefore people found it offensive. But that doesn't mean that she get arrested. No, but that's the point. Everybody then starts calling for everybody's arrest. everybody gets offended at the slightest pretext and starts wanting to arrest the other person. State governments, police forces get involved. And what is a joke in the past then becomes a criminal offense.
Rahul, you're proving my point actually, that this is what Nash equilibrium is. This is what John Nash said. There's a reason he got the Nobel Prize, because this is what naturally happens. How do we control this? If the expectation is that one side, for example, Christians in the West or Hindus, Buddhists, Jains in India, will continue, in a situation where they may feel they are being treated unfairly. That is not sustainable. You're actually proving John Nash once again. The point is, what is the way out of this? I wish that the equilibrium is not that we move to a situation of extremism. That would be most unfortunate. Our ancestors told us, Ati Sarvatra Varjai, extremism of any kind should be avoided. I wish we can return to a state where we treat all religions with respect, all gods, all prophets, and we speak politely, but we also question politely, gently. That is the Indian way, and I wish we can revive that.
Okay, I've enjoyed this conversation. There are lots to reflect on, think about, no clear answers. But it's important to have heard from Amish Tripathi, got his views on this entire Kaali controversy, and he's given a historical and religious perspective on what we're seeing unfold around us. Amish Tripathi, stay well. Thank you for joining us from London, and hope to have you back again soon, but hopefully not when there is a controversy. We'd just love to talk about your new book or something else that's happening rather than some burning, raging controversy. But thanks, Amish. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Rahul.
Why is that every year around the time of monsoons, life comes to a complete standstill in Assam? What makes flooding so deadly in Assam? Is it poor planning, climate change, or is it a culmination of both? More than 174 lives were lost due to current wave of floods in Assam. Continuous rains, landslides and floods have only intensified the loss of lives and property. Experts have pointed out some of the possible reasons here, like faulty flood control measures, shrinking water bodies, population increase, and of course, unregulated construction. The flood in the two river basins of Barak and Brahmaputra is not new, but the intense destruction can be because of these reasons. Moreover, frequent flash floods also add to their woes, which leave people very little time to protect themselves and their property. In many instances, early warnings and flood forecasts don't reach vulnerable population, so there is no scope for preparation at all. Heavy rainfall and large rivers
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
You are watching India Today. You are watching India.
Co-presented by PolicyBazaar.com in association with LIC हर पल आपके साथ, SBI pre-approved personal loan in just 4 clicks, Jio Mart हर घर का मार्ट. Mahua faces the wrath of Kaali. Calls for arrest, FIRs mount. Mahua brazens it out. Mamta remains evasive. Mahua, Mamta, Ma Kaali.
Good evening and welcome. Thank you for tuning to 6 p.m. Prime. I'm Pooja Shali. Now, the furor over a Ma Kaali film poster, that storm has now gone over to Bengal, and that is being faced by the TMC MP Mahua Moitra. She's been isolated by her own party. Mamata Banerjee has not given her strong support, and the BJP is only asking protests and arrests against her. That and more. Let's begin first with the headlines. Complaints mount against Mahua Moitra for her controversial Kaali remark. Bajrang Dal has now filed a complaint in Assam. Delhi BJP demands Mahua's arrest. After the poster of a smoking goddess Kaali, filmmaker Leena Manimekalai tweets smoking Shiva and Durga images, calls India a hate machine. First, he was tutored by cops in custody to pose as a drunk and escape law. Now Ajmer's hate monger Khadim seen flashing thumbs up sign. A dramatic rescue caught on camera in Jamnagar, Gujarat. School kids stuck in a bus in flood water have been now brought to safety. Punjab Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann ties the knot with long-time sweetheart Gurpreet Kaur in a Chandigarh Gurudwara. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal plays father of the groom, blesses the newlywed couple. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson steps down as the UK Prime Minister after multiple scandals and mass cabinet resignations in the past few hours. Rishi Sunak is in contention to now be the next Prime Minister of UK. What next for the Trinamool Congress Member of Parliament Mahua Moitra, because complaints are mounting against her one by one. This time, as it appears, one after another state is where complaints are being lodged against Mahua Moitra, which means from Assam to Delhi. Complaints are increasing. In Assam, for example, the Hindu right-wing outfit Bajrang Dal has filed a complaint against Mahua Moitra in the Hailakandi police station in Assam. Meanwhile, even in national capital Delhi, another complaint has been filed against the TMC MP and also the filmmaker Leena Manimekalai at the Sansad Marg police station, which is central Delhi area, by the BJP. BJP is demanding immediate action and that FR should be lodged and culprits be arrested. No one has the right to spread religious fanaticism is some of the mention in those complaints. Meanwhile, protests are being planned against Mahua even in Kolkata, which has already seen protests. Suvendu Adhikari of the BJP to lead the BJP cadre for the protest. Let's go across quickly to my colleague Ritik Mondal on the same. Ritik, what next for Mahua Moitra? Mamata Banerjee has not exactly spoken up in her support. The BJP is mounting pressure and arrests. What is happening right now in the state of Bengal? What is the ground sentiment? And where do you see Mahua Moitra in the next few days?
Pooja, let me tell you that it has already turned political, and it seems like it's nothing but TMC versus BJP at a time when TMC is maintaining distance and from Mahua Moitra after her controversial comment on Ma Kaali today we were speaking to a very senior member of parliament of Trinamool Congress, Shaukat Roy, where he indicated while talking to India Today that some action the party may take some action against Mahua Moitra, but they continuously believe that there is no way to stand beside Mahua Moitra. On the other hand, BJP is mounting pressure to arrest Mahua Moitra, even as you rightly mentioned just a while back that several police complaints have been registered in several police stations pan-India, here in Kolkata, in Bengal. Even today, we did see several, fresh complaints have been registered. Even in fact, where we are standing.
Do tell us that with Mamata Banerjee finally speaking out in public for the first time since this controversy broke out, what did she say? Because clearly, as it appeared, her remarks were evasive. She did not immediately support her own member of parliament, who she's had issues in the past as well. We remember what happened once on the stage a few months ago when there was a slight snub that Mamata had given to Mahua.
Exactly. Today, Mamata Banerjee was addressing a gathering of her government, and where she indicated primarily, it was not without naming. I know she indicated that. At a time, what is going on, some negative comment cannot always create controversy, and she expressed her view. It was a mere indication what exactly going on